Moving on to the second technical session of today, which is based on effective ICT methods in teaching learning process for higher education. We rarely get this kind of opportunity to listen to the words of great knowledgeable speaker, Dr. Kapil Kadam, researcher in the area of education technology. Before we start with this session, I would like to introduce Dr. Kapil Kadam sir. Kapil sir is a researcher in the area of education technology, especially the development of student spatial skills. He completed his BE and MTech in computer science and engineering from Shivaji University and PhD in education technology from IIT Bombay. Currently, he works as an education consultant. He has offered MOOC courses on IIT Bombay's about the fundamentals of 3D visualizations. He has also conducted several faculty development programs across India for topics like active learning, ICT in education, flipped classroom, online teaching, blended learning, educational technology research, and content delivery. His current research interests include educational technology, development of spatial skills, computer science education research, teacher training, technology-enabled learning of thinking skills, engineering drawing, e-learning, etc. In addition to the enthusiast and has conducted several blender training workshops for teachers and students in India. These workshops focus on the basics of 3D modeling, 3D animation, and 3D visualization using Blender. May I now request Dr. Kapil Kadam sir to address the gathering.
Hello friends, I'm Kamal Manwatahi Hingarada. क्या बना था अपन?
Due to some technical glitch, sir is not here. We are trying to contact him. Just bear with us. Kapil sir is with us. Kapil sir, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi. I just joined, so I can hear you. So there is one technical glitch I'm facing for a while now. I won't be able to, I'm not able to put my camera on. There is something with the update or hardware issues. So please accept my apologies. I won't be able to put my video on, but I can share my screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir. So just give us a minute to make you the host.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're the host now.
Okay. Yeah. So, shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a moment. So, I'm sharing my screen so that your screen will get stopped.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
You can start, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kapil Kadam. I have done my PhD in education technology from IIT Bombay. So today I'll be speaking about how we can use ICT for effective teaching learning, mainly for higher education. So this is me because my camera is not working. I have to share my picture. So please bear with me for that. Most of the time, what I would like you to be an active participant. I would be asking simple questions in between where you have to respond either in chat box or I'll be using a couple of tools and we will go through with that. Okay. So to begin with, can you tell me which of these are not valid learning objectives? So like identify the purpose of ICT in given educational context, or understand your role as a teacher in effectively integrating ICT in class, or implementing instructional strategy for effective integration of ICT in class. Identify your role as a teacher in effectively integrating ICT in class. So these are the four learning objectives that I'm showing you. You can simply respond in chat box with your answers, which are not the valid learning objectives. Okay, 1 and 3. So I understand it's a lunch time and you must have had a long session, long beginning session, but we will have a quick round. Great. Okay, 1, 3, 2, and 4. So it looks like all of you have covered 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'm not going to tell you why, which one is correct and why which is not. Okay. So let me see what I have to talk about this. So as per me, like second and third is not a valid learning objective. So the basic idea is, when we define learning objectives, it should be in some measurable form or it should be well executed. So when you say understand your role as a teacher, so understand doesn't tell us what exactly you mean by understand, how you can measure the understanding of learner, right? So when we say implement appropriate instructional strategy, so here I missed the term like implement the appropriate word. So you again have to define what is the correct way to define your learning objectives. So the whole idea of having this quick exercise for you to understand. So sometimes we simply go by what we define as a learning objective. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So whenever you are trying to define learning objectives, remember these action verbs which are based on the reverse Bloom's taxonomy or Bloom's taxonomy. So you must have very well versed with recall, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create these keywords. And there are a lot of action verbs. I'm not going to talk much about this thing. This is just for your reference, just to revise. And quickly, just to go through what is Bloom's taxonomy. So it is, it was created by Bloom's mainly in order to promote higher forms of thinking in education, okay, especially for analyzing and evaluating concepts, processes, procedures, principles, rather than just remembering facts, right? So this is just a quick reference slide for you, and most often we use this for designing educational content, training content, and learning processes. So the next part, before jumping into ICT, I have a quick exercise for you. I'll give you a scenario. You can take a couple of minutes, not it won't require 5 minutes here, but you can take 1 or 2 minutes. Read through this passage, and then I'll have a question for you. So when you're done, you can simply raise your hand or some gestures so that I can understand that you have done, or simply respond in a chat box. Great. So my question for you is, it's a very intuitive and simple. Are there any ICT tools used in the given scenario, right? So, yeah. So I wanted you to respond in a chat box. I think you already started. Okay. Google Form, Zoom, Google Feedback as a quiz, video, blogs, classroom, video, blogs, forms. Correct. For example, video taken from YouTube, Google Forms for evaluating and giving views. Correct. So these are very simplistic examples that I've tried to use. Not exactly these are simple, but in this given context, right? So continuing with your responses, here I have tried to highlight those in the given scenario. Okay. So as most of you have said, you could simply see YouTube is used for showing videos. Google Form is used for having quiz online. Then you have WhatsApp Messenger for sharing pictures. Then you have blog for posting teacher experiences and reflections. Then you have classroom management app for having attendance, real-time polls, quizzes, and also to manage classrooms. And then there is a quiz tool for tracking students learning. Correct? So in a way, these technologies used for these specific processes are known as information and communication technologies. So here, that's the main idea for me, to highlight what ICT is. Okay. So here is another representation to convey the same message, where we have a lot of technologies and tools and resources, for example, quiz, video, CRM app, and blog. And how this deals with the information. This information is specifically about educational information. So you could see that quiz tool can be used to create quizzes, right? Then video is for disseminating information. Then CRM app is to store information. Then blog is to manage information. So moving further, so ICT in education, especially, it has potential to be used in various practices of education. We are already using it in a lot of scenarios. What I could say that for last a year or something, most of us or all of us have been shifted entirely into online teaching, and you must have explored more number of ICT tools, maybe more than what I have been experiencing. So especially these can be used for teaching and learning, where uh, in teaching and learning we can integrate ICT, especially for content creation, then content delivery, then again for collaboration or collaborative learning, right? Some of you must have been using it for learner engagement. Then assessment is one of the major purpose, and administration and research. So apart from research, most commonly teachers are likely to use this for first 4 or 5 purposes. So this is just a graphical representation where you could see the different tools, and that can be used for different level of Bloom's taxonomy. So a classic example of use of ICT in class is visualizations such as animations and simulations that has been shown to provide many learning benefits, okay, especially in STEM disciplines. So here you could see two different visual representations. Here it's a screenshot from an animation and simulation, where you could see some phenomena has a very rich graphical representation of it. And then here you could see a mathematical expression has a different form of representations, so that learning can happen in a better way. So my question for you is, how do you just give me a moment. Okay, there was some glitch. Okay, my question for you is, how do you use visualization in your class? So I want you to, so visualization could be of any form. I want you to think for a minute or a few seconds, and you need to respond in a chat box like you did for the previous activity. So you need to think about in what ways you have used visualization in your class, and maybe what is the purpose for using it, or when should one use visualization in class. You can think of face-to-face or online, any form, and see if you can explain some elements, components of visualization. So just quickly, you can think and respond in a chat box. Okay, I could see a lot of responses. Teams, Okay, this is a previous question. Canvas we are using, Google Form blogs, okay. GIF images and simulations for MOA, charts, PPTs, PPT animations, pictorial visualization using PPT, video, diagrams, videos for explaining some processes and animations, correct. Videos, animations, PPTs and animations, small animated videos. Great. So yeah, let us have a quick this thing. Now, in continuation with your responses, what I have to say is most of the time we use visualization in the class. Okay, anatomy models. Great. So how do most teachers use visualization in class? Like most of you have said, so normally teachers will play or show or demonstrate visualization, maybe using PPTs or projectors, right? Like most of you have said. And what happens is mostly we as a teacher will give some narrative explanation in order to that, in addition to the visualizations. So what is expected from the students or what students do after that? So mostly students will watch and ask for clarification if needed. So they are most of the time observer um, or they can ask some questions. Okay. Now I have a quick vote question for you. Again, you will have to respond in the chat box. Do you think that demonstration and explanation of visualization is effective? You can simply say yes or no. Okay, you're saying yes. Professor Mamta, Lalit Kumar. Okay, so isn't it interesting when we have a question of yes and no, we tend to receive a lot of responses because it's either yes or no. Sometimes. Great. That means it depends. Great. Thank you for your active responses. Now, I also agree that, you know, demo and explanation is effective. And it's not just me and you, but there is a lot of research that, or the results from the research that shows showing demonstration alone is not effective. Just showing visualization has profound effect on learning effectiveness. So in agreement with all of you, the results also show that so demo and explanation are effective. Okay. However, even if things are like this, the problem is ICT is everywhere. Okay, and everyone encourages use of these ICTs. For example, different LMS, MOOCs, visualizations, simulations, videos, animation, and wikis. Right, but the potential of these technologies is lost without appropriate pedagogical strategies. So important part is if you do not have appropriate pedagogical strategies or teaching methods, okay, it is of no use. So again, one of the problem is difficulty in designing and implementing these learner-centric practices with ICTs. So these are the major problems, even if we are using high-end ICTs. Now, what is the solutions? So just briefly to list out some of the solutions. As a teacher, what we need to have is we need to have, or the teachers need to have knowledge of certain things. First of all, which ICT tools are useful? Definitely you should know what are the ICT tools and then which of them are really useful. And then how to select or choose a specific tool for a given learning objective. So this part is really important for us. And then how to effectively integrate some teaching methods or instructional strategies with these tools. So whenever next time you want to think of using any tool for your instructions, just think of these three factors. Okay. I would quickly jump upon one of the ICT tool that I would be introducing to you is Mentimeter. Okay. So now there are a lot of assumptions I can make before presenting Mentimeter. Since, like I mentioned, it's been a year that most of us have moved to online. Some of you might have exposure to Mentimeter in different ways. So instead of directly jumping to Mentimeter, I have a quick question for you. Now, this time you don't need to respond it in a chat box, but rather you have to simply go to Mentimeter. My question is, have you used Mentimeter before to uh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, there was some power cut, so I had lost my connection. Okay, so you don't need to respond here. You have to go to Mentimeter. I will share this code and link in chat box so that you can respond. Okay, so I want you to go to menti.com and then enter this code. So once you enter this code, you will be able to see this window. Once you enter the code, you will be able to see these multiple choices and you just have to respond. It's a very short and quick activity. Okay, so those who have responded in the chat window can also needs to go there and respond. Okay. So here you could simply see that people are responding and I'm sharing the live responses. Okay. So for now, 4 of you have responded, 2 have used, 2 have not used, right?
It's 1:30.
Let us wait for a minute and then I can move further. Great. We could see that many of you have responded. Almost 50% have said yes and almost 50% have said no. So most of you have used it from the current percentage. Now the whole idea of me asking you this question, because now all of you know how many of you have used it, how many of you have not used it. So those who have used it can, check whether I'm adding to their knowledge, or those who have not used, definitely they will have something to know about. Okay. Okay, you can stop responding so that I can move further. Now, the whole idea is, what is Mentimeter? Okay, so those who have not used, you can simply get the idea of it. So Mentimeter is, easy to use interactive presentation tool, a tool that can used to increase student learning and engagement in the classroom in any form of mode, right? Whether it's online or offline. Okay, and it can be a tool to test student knowledge. You can utilize it for sharing ideas and getting feedback. It is also very inclusive and fun. So you just simply don't need to have a multiple choice question, but you can add some videos, images, GIFs, so to make it more engaging, right? It is free to use. You will have a lot of features that are required to engage students in a free version. If there is much more you want to use, you can go for some subscription model. Apart from all these simple features, what I use this Mentimeter is mainly for to trigger thinking among my learners. Okay. So this is one of the important aspects. You will understand how I do it. So how to use Mentimeter? Simply ask a question, then take audience vote or poll, and then present results in a real time like I have done over here. Okay. You might have, you might come up with a lot of questions like, how can I know which students have responded and not? So there are different ways you can explore later after the session. That's not going to be part of the session because I'll be just introducing the initial part of it. Okay. Now, if you're a teacher or a presenter, you may need to go to mentimeter.com, the entire word mentimeter.com, and then you can log in using your Google account, or you can create a separate account. If you are in the audience or you're a participant or a student, you can simply need to go to menti.com to participate in the poll. Okay, that's a very brief introduction about the Mentimeter. Now I have a very interesting activity. So there I would expect all of you or most of you to participate, right? Here I could see only, given the time crunch, only 18 responded. But now let us see how many of you are actually comfortable in using Mentimeter. When I said, how to use Mentimeter, let us start with a learning objective. My objective is that students should be able to predict the outcome of a phenomena. So at the current moment, all you participants are the students, and I want you to predict the outcome of a phenomena. Now you can see there are two pictures, same pictures from a different angle. You could see a bowling ball and feathers are attached, are hanging in a chamber with a significant height. Now there are two conditions. The first condition is dropping this ball and the feather together in a chamber from a significant height. So my question is, okay, the condition is normal, okay? This normal condition. So which will fall fastest? I have four options for you. A, bowling ball will fall fastest, or B, feather, or C, both together, or D, nothing will happen. So I want you to respond in a chat box this time, okay, in the condition one. So you can just simply read it and then you can think of responding in a chat box. Bowling ball in atmospheric pressure, ball A, ball. Somebody saying both. Okay. 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 Most of your, almost everybody is saying ball. Okay, somebody saying C, both. So hold on to your answers. I'm not going to ask you the reason at the moment, but there must be some understanding, some principle or some logic that you must have applied based on your understanding, right? So hold on to your answers and let us move for the next part of the activity. Okay. So what you have to do now is, there is a condition 2. Okay. The condition 2 is you are again dropping the ball and feather at the same time from a significant height in a chamber. Now this time, the virtually all the air has been sucked out of the chamber, right? So now you have to tell me which will fall fastest. So again, I have the same options, but this time don't respond in the chat box. Rather, I want you to respond in a Mentimeter. Okay. So go to menti.com and enter this code. to respond with your answers. I have posted it in the chat box also. Okay, the code is 36998362. Okay, so it would be interesting to see how do you respond. And once you have responded in the Mentimeter, you can again come back to chat box and justify your answers, whichever options you have chosen, right? This was a previous one. Okay. Here you could see that people are still responding. Okay. Right now there are 4 people who have responded, and 50% are saying bowling ball will fall fastest. 25% are saying both will fall at the same speed. Some people are saying nothing will happen. No one is saying that feather will fall fastest. So the whole idea is you could see that though there must be one answer for these questions, we have different opinions, we have different understandings. Some could be correct, some could be wrong, or we don't know it. Okay. And here we could see that people are sending options, but rather than giving options in the chat box, try to give reasoning. Okay, somebody is saying both will fall at same speed in vacuum, Newton's law of gravity. That is some reasonable justification is coming up. Now other people can keep reading these answers or reasonings and keep looking and keep verifying your own answers. Okay. So those who have responded, maximum people are saying this bowling ball will fall fastest. Second most responded answer is both will fall at the same speed. The least people are saying that nothing will happen. Okay. So I will wait for a few more seconds so that most of you can get chance to respond. And let's see if people are giving their reasoning. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll move ahead. Okay. So interestingly, okay, some other responses are popping up. Let us wait for a few more seconds, I guess. Okay. So all of you can see that how we are receiving the responses. Interestingly, none of you have said feather. Most of you are saying bowling ball. Okay. Now, I do not want to, give you the answers right away. Instead of that, I would like you to watch a simple or a small, not simple, a small video which would explain this phenomena. It could be a couple of minutes video. So let us watch the video. Let me have it over here.
Good grammar and spelling.
Right. So the whole idea was, to utilize these all tools and the concepts and activities to ensure how we can come up to this innovative or very interesting pedagogy. Okay. So if you want to have more understanding about the phenomena, so definitely I'm not going to explain the entire part of it, but what you can always check your understanding by, this is Galileo's famous gravity experiment. You can Google it anytime and learn more about it. Just a moment. Sorry for this code. It's 83. Okay, you can participate in that later on. It's over now. That activity is over now. Okay. You can have more understanding about this gravity experiment later on. Now, what you just witnessed was a strategy known as POE, that is predict, observe, and explain strategy. Okay. So the whole activity was designed and based upon the POE strategy, and of course, definitely utilizing some ICT tools, including Mentimeter, as well as the YouTube video. Then we have been using the Zoom's features of chat, right? But the whole idea is how to integrate all this in order to facilitate our learning objective. So how this POE strategy will look like? So first you need to set the context. A teacher can set the context in a different way. Either you can use that video, you can play that video at some part, and then you can pause or stop. What I did is I showed you some part of the video, visuals, where you could observe the first part. Then in the next phase, which is predict phase, teacher can facilitate the question where students, the question like what will happen after, what will happen if, with some conditions, right? And students or the participants are expected to make some predictions, or they can write their explanation, they can vote, or they can simply discuss with each other. A lot of possibilities are there. What I did is I asked you to predict the outcome in different conditions. No discussions were happened. Also, I asked you to give reasoning for your justifications. Then after the predict phase, there was an observe phase where teacher can simply show the rest of the visualization or any visualization. Here it was a video explanation. Okay. There, students are expected to check their predictions and their understandings. They can get clarification about whether their answers were right or wrong, correct? Where you can show the rest of the video. And the final part is explain phase. In the explain phase, either teacher can facilitate class discussion on, telling why or the reason behind the observation, and you can show the visualization again and again to re-emphasize the reasonings. The students will check their understanding with the rest of the visualization and the explanation facilitated by the teacher. So I did not do much part of the explanation here because this was just a demonstration for you to understand. But in an actual physics class, to talk about gravity or something, this kind of activity can be done, right? So you can also think of much more ideas about it. So this is a predict, observe, explain strategy, a very well known strategy in science, which can be used in different contexts, which are suitable to this, right? Now, the whole idea of telling you this strategy, it's not just about this predict, observe, explain strategy. So just think about, I had to implement this strategy in an online form where I'm using Zoom, where I'm having Mentimeter, where I'm having YouTube. Then again, I'm using my Google Slides, right? A lot of things I had to integrate in this activity. You can, whenever you're using online, there are different ways you can integrate. You can also use features of your own platform like Zoom or any other platform, or even if you're using Moodle or MOOCs, you can use different features of your platform. Here I tried to be more generic, considering the lot of situations. The current situation has a very generic requirement from mix practices of teaching. Okay, I have one more example to reinforce this learning, but I will not be using this because I do not have much time to do that right now. But it is again the simple question where I had another part where uh, this is a helium balloon, attached to a thread and kept in a plastic box. And I wanted you to predict what happens to this balloon if this man pushes the car. So it is not a vacuum; it is a normal conditions. I request everyone to. Mute all. Thank you. So again, and similar way, the reasoning behind it. Okay. So if you want, you can simply tell me what will happen to the balloon if you push the cart, if the man pushes the cart. Is it gonna move forward, backward, or won't move, or you don't know? Okay. So let us skip this activity at the moment because I have some other part to discuss. This can be, I'll share some part of it and you can simply uh, learn at your own pace. Okay, so the whole part I was interested in conveying is that just think of POE strategy and think of how you can implement in your own domain or in your own subjects. Okay, so I'll give you this as an assignment in the last slide of this part. So remember three aspects of effective learning whenever you are implementing ICT, right? So first part is learning objective, where you need to figure out what exactly do you want students to be able to do. That has to be very clear. It could be for your one class or one unit or one chapter or the entire semester or the entire year or for the entire course, right? Okay. So it should be stated in a measurable form. So you should be able to measure it afterwards once you have taught the topic. Okay. So how to measure? Definitely, we need to do the assessment part of it, where we can determine how we can determine the students have attained the learning objectives, and why and how it can be done is we need to align this assessment with the learning objective. So in addition to these two aspects, the instructional activities is a major aspect. So you can visualize this in the form of triangle of effective learning with this three aspect of effective pedagogy. So you can simply see that learning objectives, instructional activities, and assessment together will have effective teaching learning process. So in this previous example, what we saw is we used learning objective where we wanted student to predict something, and we aligned this learning objective with the instructional activity or instructional strategy that was POE, that is predict, observe, explain. So there are a lot of instructional activities or strategies we have been using, and there are new, or if you are not using, there are a lot of active learning strategies like think, pair, share, peer instructions, POE, group discussion. There are a lot of activities that you can include. The important part is how you integrate these pedagogical strategies to make use of ICT more effective. So let me emphasize on one part of it. See, every teacher has a unique way to teach or facilitate learning. So always remember that the technologies are just tools to facilitate learning. So not necessarily utilizing PPT for 1 hour will ensure the better learning, but it depends on how the teacher is using, whether he is simply using text or animations or graphs or storytelling or using examples. It is entirely up to the teacher and that particular subject or the topic. So uh, I'm just trying to show some examples where how you can use these instructional strategies effectively with some tools. Okay. Now, if you remember when I said I emphasize on triggering thinking. So in the previous example where I asked you a question about predicting which will fall fastest, one teacher could simply tell students that, see, this is what the situation, this is what the law of gravity talks about, and in this example, this is what will happen. Correct? Nothing wrong with that. But again, it's entirely dependent on the teacher. So if you are just, transmitting the information, only knowledge acquisition will happen, but you will not be able to trigger thinking among the students. So to trigger that thinking, I have tried to utilize different ways. So like when I was showing this Mentimeter, when students can see that, oh, there are 53% are saying that bowling ball will fall fastest, those who are responding option C will might think that whether I'm wrong or right, I don't know. Correct? So people will try to compare their answers and they will try to verify their understanding. So again, when I asked you to respond to the chat box, you could see lot of responses we receive, and they get to verify their answers, and ultimately at the end explain phase, all this thinking, all this learning can be compiled together and the objectives can be achieved. So that is one way to utilize POE. That is not the only strategy, but this is how I wanted to explain you. Okay. So yeah, there are few more examples we could have about Mentimeter. This is just you don't need to pay more attention on this. This is multiple options where you can ask students to respond to correct answer. Now there are different ways Mentimeter can facilitate these responses. You can have a leaderboard where you can simply see who has responded fastest. You can display names. These are some proxy names. Likewise, you can play with the Mentimeter. You can also export data of the Mentimeter. Okay. Let me just simply give a brief overview of Mentimeter, or the brief, what I can say, go through with the interface. So here you can, this is my Mentimeter interface. Okay, you can keep on adding slides over here. So here you could, okay, what type of question you want to ask. So here, if you see, there are a lot of popular question types. Okay, multiple choice, word cloud, open-ended questions, ranking, scales, quiz. Okay, there are different formats you will be able to see. I'm not going to touch about it. You can simply explore. For this purpose, I use multiple choice question. Okay, now what type of content that you will be entering? So here I could enter my questions. Here I can enter my options. Here I can add images like in this question. Okay, now what kind of result layout you want to have? So most commonly we understand bar representations, right? So that we can easily compare these questions. You can have donut representation, you can have a pie chart, you can have a dots, depending on your question and the requirement or the kind of engagement you want to have. Okay, so here you could see that if I click on this percentage, I will be able to see the numbers or percentage, right? So if there are a lot of numbers like 100, thousands, you can simply use percentage, or depends on your choice. Fine. So this is simply just make you go through this basic interface of Mentimeter. You can explore on your own. There are different themes and you can have customization available. But always remember, I focus on utilizing this features of Mentimeter to, trigger thinking rather than giving right or wrong answer, or rather than doing any assessment. Okay. So here in this particular type of question, I use this as a diagnostic assessment where I wanted to know the prior knowledge of the participants. So accordingly, I can, facilitate my next instructions. Okay. Here it is more of engaging students. Okay. So that is the whole idea of how you can utilize Mentimeter. You can explore more about the Mentimeter. So next tool I would like to talk about is Padlet. Now I'm not going to have a same questionnaire. whether you have used it, and I'm not going to take voting for this. Let me check. There are a few chat responses. Okay, please feedback, network issue here. So does it not create a doubt in student as every time they see difference and try to think that they might be wrong? Okay, so see, the whole idea is creating doubt is one part of triggering thinking. So facilitator or the teacher has to clear that doubt. So student has to come forward and tell, so I have this doubt. Okay. So it depends on, you don't need to facilitate this kind of activity all the time, but depending on the topic, right? So in this case, it is suitable, but you have to clarify their doubts. That's what the learning happens. Okay. Yeah. So I have a question for you. You can simply post your responses in a chat box. Have you used Padlet before? If yes, then for what purpose? You can simply say yes and no, and okay. Okay, so the initial most of the responses are saying no. Okay, one response says yes. Okay, so fine, yeah. It's a good to know that you have not used or some of you have used it. Never mind. I'm not gonna, give demonstration about it, but again, I'll be using an example to demonstrate how I have used Padlet. So before telling you what is Padlet, or sorry, how I have used the Padlet, a simple description about Padlet would be: Padlet is an online virtual bulletin board. You can think of like that, where students and teachers can, collaborate or reflect or do some activities. The facilitators can share links and pictures. Even participants can also share links and pictures. Okay, and majorly you can use it for, collaboration, for collecting ideas, or if you want to brainstorm about some projects or something like that. So these are the most common purposes that Padlet has been used. Uh, See, there are a lot of other tools similar to Padlet are available, but Padlet has, very few unique features and very simplicity. So I often use Padlet for these things. Of course, Padlet is free and easy to use. Much about Padlet you can figure out when you actually, explore it. Okay, let's get back to how did I use it recently. Okay, sorry. So in a similar way, when I use Mentimeter, here also I asked a question. I asked audience to think for few minutes, and then I asked them to post on Padlet. So for example, when I was having uh, my sessions or my workshop on animation, so I could have simply gone on to telling them what is animation. There is a few statements and a simple definition I could have facilitated. But I wanted to diagnose that how many of them are actually think about animation, what is their understanding about the animation. So I asked them to think individually for a couple of minutes and then asked them to post it on a Padlet. So if you could see, this is a Padlet and these are the responses from the students. So I'll open a Padlet and let us see the responses live so that you can get a better idea of it. Okay, so here you could simply see a lot of responses received from students, like 40 students were responded. Okay, so you can see that some is saying animation is using transformation, some is saying using pictures to create moving objects, some is saying computer software, some is saying creating characters. So just think about a diverse perspectives, various or different perspectives from students for the same concept of animation, right? The question was simply, what is animation according to you? So you could get amazed by seeing a lot of creative responses or a lot of simple responses from students. Now, once I know that they have a lot of opinions about it, and I have made them to think and get their thoughts out of their mind, then as a facilitator I can simply give them a standard definition of animation. Okay, and here you could see all of them can read everybody else's description and they can see that there are a lot of people who are aligned with their thinking, right? So this is the interesting part of triggering thinking among students. So here also Padlet plays an important role. Okay, so this is one example. Another example, this was mostly text based. Another example is in the same 3D animation workshop, I had a 3D modeling part of it. So where I train students on 3D modeling online, and then I asked them to create a 3D model, and then I asked them to post the output on Padlet. So this also worked as a formative assessment. So I'll show you how it went on. So this is what the 3D modeling part of the workshop, where I showed the demonstration of how you can create a 3D modeling. Okay, and I wanted to know how much they have understood and whether they can create able to create this 3D model or not, and also that is in a quick part, right? So what I did, I asked them to submit their assignments. So here you could see the screenshot of it. So this is where student responded and posted their images on the single Padlet. Okay, I could better I can go to the link. Yes, students can see everybody's opinion over here. They can also respond to others. This is visible to everyone. Okay, this is visible to everyone. Now you could simply see that these are the submissions from students. Now each students can see everybody else's submission and they can ask or comment on their Padlet if guided or if they feel so, and they can learn from each other. At the same time, as a facilitator, I can simply get to know at what level they have gone on to making the 3D model. So I had shown them this part of it. However, you could simply see that somebody has added color, they have created different shapes, they have also you know different figures they have explored. So here you could simply see that at what level students are at this moment. So since it was 3D modeling part, so before going at the advanced level, I wanted to see whether they have understood this part or not, right? So this is how I have used in one part of it. Now I'll get back to you why how this was termed as a formative assessment, because the whole idea was students should be able to create a very nice model, and then they should be able to add colors, material, lighting, and definitely they should be able to render the output. This is giving an example for you. So yeah, let it open. So this is the final assignment where it was expected for students to create different models, create a particular scene in the 3D tool called Blender, and they should able to render it and they should able to post it over here. Okay, so now you can see that students were able to create, they were able to apply all these learnings and able to create a 3D modeling scene. Somebody has created rooms, somebody has created a hammer from the Thor's hammer, a lot of creative outputs. You could see a car, a static models, some random creativity with Joker like figure, right? So here everybody can see everybody else's postings, they can ask questions, they can learn more. And as a facilitator, I can have everything at one go at one platform. So normally when Padlets were not there, I used to ask them to submit on the Google Drive, then I used to check the Google Drive, then I used to personally respond. It's like 5-10 years back, but now it's easier. There are different platforms, but the Padlet is much more interesting at this kind of a conditions. Okay, so this is how I use Padlet. Okay, so you can think of different ways you want to use Padlet. So till now, what we have seen is purpose of using ICT, then how to implement appropriate instructional strategies to effectively integrate ICT in your class. Then we looked at teachers' role in effectively integrating ICT in class. Then we looked upon POE strategy. We saw one example of that, two examples rather. Then we saw how Mentimeter can be utilized. Then we saw a couple of examples of how Padlet can be used. Now, before finishing, I have a quick question for you. Okay. The question is, I want you to write brief answers to the following questions. That is, what is the most valuable or helpful idea or concept that you learned in the session? Just one or two. What is the confusing or muddiest point that you had in this session? Okay. So I want you to post your responses in Padlet. I will share this link in the chat box with everyone. You have to go to the Padlet. Okay. The Padlet will look like this. I'll tell you how to respond. Okay. You can follow this link. So here is a Padlet. You will be, even if you're using mobile, it is possible for you to post on a Padlet. You can use a mobile browser if app is not installed, or if you're using a laptop. Once you browse this link, okay, this is a plus sign. If you click on the plus sign, you will be able to see the post where you can simply type your responses to this question, right? Or if you simply double tap on this window, you'll be able to post your responses, right? So yeah, you have few minutes to post your responses. The question is already there on the Padlet itself. The link is shared on chat box. Everyone can see others' responses also. So I'll tell you a very important aspect of this particular part of the activity. So we almost had a session for like almost an hour now. And I talked about so many things, right? But at the end, I just asked you to talk about one or two things which are important and that you understood. Now you could simply see that everybody is responding with something. Okay. Somebody's saying Padlet, somebody's saying new concept of Mentimeter, integration of ICT, POE strategy, correct? No, what is the important part of this particular activity? See, first thing is every individual will think about what was important. Even if they have missed this particular lecture or if they were busy in doing some other stuff because they are attending online, if they are attending this part of it, when they see responses from all the participants, they could simply see that that guy enjoyed Padlet. That guy is talking about Padlet more important. So now that has created some interest or awareness about what happened in the class. Okay. So this again interesting part where you can use these kind of activities. I could have simply asked this question on chat box also, but like one of you have asked me the question how to export this data. There are options where you can export this data as an image, as an Excel sheet, right, or as a PDF in whatever format you want to have. So you don't need to bother about it. Okay. So let me wait for a couple of minutes, or you can respond later on also. I just wanted to highlight one part of it, which is, okay, what we just now did is okay, so what you just now did was a very commonly used classroom assessment technique called the minute paper. Okay, I'm not going to talk much about minute paper here, but I'll just give you information that in a normal classroom, after every lecture, we normally ask, have you understood what was important point or something like that. So this is just for the now, you can think of the minute paper and you can explore more about it. Okay, this is just for your reference. What we did is we used Padlet for that purpose. Okay. So let me just simply go through this. New technologies found helpful and valuable. There was points during lecture wherein the lecture could have been accelerated and finished before or on time. Great. None. POE, Padlet, Mentimeter Padlet, integration of ICT. So this, for a teacher also, for me also, it tells me that, okay, these things worked well in this particular session. So that will also help me, in reforming my further sessions. If there are some glitches that happened, or if there are some confusion that happened, that also tells me to, tailor my next instructions. So you always remember, as an instructor, we should be open for all these things, and doing it immediately after the class will definitely help teachers. Okay, so yeah, this is the activity. You can keep on posting later on. Let me see. Yeah, that was the last part of the slide, the session. You can explore Padlet. I'll just quickly try to, uh, browse you through with the Padlet. Okay, there were a few questions. See, there are different layouts you can have. There are different layout. Just let me see. I can. Okay, here are options where you can export what it is talking. No remake is. So actually, I have logged in. Okay, there are different layouts you can explore on your own. I have logged in into different accounts. I'm not able to do it at the moment, but you can explore. This is an exploration activity for all of you. And after that, I have a homework activity for you where I want you to design your own predict, observe, explain activity and submit it. So this is an individual activity, or you can work with group, whatever way it is possible for you. So the question is, you have to design one POE strategy based activity for any topic of your choice, or maybe the topic that you from your current course. It's your choice entirely. This can be similar or different to the examples shown in the session. So I had shown you one example. You can refer that, or you can come up with your own creative examples. Okay. So the submission can be in the form of, it could be a Word file, it could be a PDF file, it could be a PPT. You can put your name and email in that form. It's open to you, no restriction on that. So once you have done this, you have designed your predict observe activity, you have to submit this using Padlet. So how to do submission now, because now you know how to post on a Padlet. Same way, you just have to create a post and add your image over there. I'll just show you how to do that. Okay. So for example, if it is a new Padlet, when I create a post here, you could simply see that if you click on a 3 button, there are options to upload image. You can simply click on upload, and you can simply upload PDF, Word, or any file, or PPT file. So Word, PDF, or PPT, anything is Good. Okay. I hope that is simple and it's not very difficult. So you will be also able to view everybody else's POE strategies or their activity so that you can learn different POE activities from others. Okay, people have responded to my post. That is also fine, not an issue. Okay, so this is the homework for you. I hope the session was helpful to you and I was able to convey my perspective towards ICT in education, and I tried to use a generic examples for that. Okay, so thank you very much. Here you need to post the link. I'll be sharing this link with your professor, with your coordinator. So don't worry about that. I'll also share the slides. So don't need to bother about that. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Okay, so now the session is open for discussion. So there are two
Yeah.
to three questions which we'll take. There is one question. Can we integrate all ICT tools in one platform?
Just a moment. Is it there in the chat box?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you please repeat the question? I'm not able to.
Can we integrate all ICT tools in one platform?
Okay, so when you say all ICT tools, there are a lot of ICT tools, right? And these days there are a lot of platforms. Even Zoom has different features. There are other. So if you have used Moodle has different features and affordances where you can utilize different ICT tools. I would say it is not possible to use all ICT tools in one platform. Okay, because definitely there will be a lot of restrictions, but most commonly used features or ICT tool features can be integrated depending on the platform, and it is up to the institute or the teacher how he wants to integrate all these things. Okay, so this is very tricky, as well as you need to put efforts onto that. But yeah, you need to spend some initial time into in designing and planning of that particular part. So if you remember, the important point that I emphasized was it is not about utilizing all the ICT tools, but how effectively you want to use that tools. Yeah, this is what I have a response. Hope that clarifies some doubt.
There's one more question, sir. Whether
Yeah.
it works same as that of Google Classroom?
Whether Padlet works as?
Same as that of Google Classroom.
What of Google Classroom?
Whether Padlet can work same as what does the Google Classroom. Whatever activities you can carry out on Google Classroom, can it be carried out on Padlet also?
So I won't think all will be carried out using Padlet, but definitely some of them are possible. So Google Classroom has entirely different way of execution where you have entire Google Drive support where you can organize things, as well as Google Classroom has different way of conducting these activities. You have Google Forms, Jamboards, and all these features. So some of them are possible, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, sir, for this engaging and interactive session on effective ICT methods in teaching and learning process for higher education. Sir discussed different aspects of ICT methods, which included purpose of ICT in class, uses of ICT in class, like animations and simulations, the problems associated with the use of ICT methods and the solutions to it through different activities were discussed by sir. The aspects of effective pedagogy were discussed, which included learning objective, instructional activities, and assessment. Use of Mentimeter and Padlet as ICT tools were discussed through different activities. Thank you so much, sir, for spending your valuable time with us.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, and hope it was fruitful session for you. Thank you for all the participants once again.
So kindly accept this virtual bouquet on behalf of convener, Dr. P.D. Chaudhary, Principal of P.E.S. Modern College of Pharmacy, Nigdi, and Coordinator
Yeah.
of STTP.
Thank you. This is something interesting. Yeah, thank you very much.
Atul
And
Patel from Modern College of Pharmacy, Nigdi, as a token of gratitude. And sir, please kindly accept the certificate from P.E.S. Modern College of Pharmacy as a token of appreciation.
yeah, thank you very much. This will be shared later on, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your interactive session and thanks for your patience also. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Professor Phatak. Thank you
Yes,
very
yes,
much. Yeah.
yes.